Hello everyone. I hope you are all doing well today. Let's see, I think today, we're going to do some character creation, I think, for Cairn. Originally I was maybe in no real hurry, maybe not really going to do it. Making a character, very easy, you know, there's rules like game, 5-10 minute procedure to make a character. So I wasn't sure I was going to make a video on it. I was just going to do it online, but then it did occur to me, however, that it's actually a very good opportunity to talk about the solo tools, Flint, that we're going to be using really for the majority of stuff we're going to be doing in Cairn, because Flint does make a significant addition to character creation. So that kind of, probably should talk about it before I roll my character, since it's kind of a thing. And I'll give me a chance to talk about Flint, how it kind of works, how we're going to be using it. As I said, it's going to be our main tool for solo play. So it's probably good to know a bit of overview about it. So yes, let's talk about it first. So yeah, that's the way we'll approach it. So as I mentioned, Flint is a game that relies on tarot deck for primary, for its quest generation. It's kind of NPC motivations, perhaps, general flavor, that sort of thing, and also skill progression. So it has its own set of skill progression here, so it's going to be a significant part of what we do. Well, my fingers are feeling a little less nimble today. This deck is feeling a little larger than really should. And it's going to be a very significant portion of what we do. As you can tell when you look at Flint, to be honest, it probably is just a hair thicker than the entire player's guide for Cairn. So that should tell you indeed how much we're going to be using it. There's definitely a heck of a lot of resource for us on it. But maybe for Cairn, for character creation, as I mentioned, it's it's a few pages, a lot of some random stuff. Never, not really all that much. Really, this page here is all you need for character creation. It has all the additional stuff after that to look up tables. It has 3 main attributes in Cairn: strength, dexterity, and willpower. Roll 3d6 for those. What Flint does to make a fairly significant change, it adds a 4th attribute, one somewhat controversial because it gets frequently excluded for these days from a lot of these new style OSR games. That's the attribute of presence. So we'll actually be adding an actual 4th attribute. Bit controversial. I don't know if it's that controversial, but kind of controversial because it's excluded, and probably was excluded intentionally by Mr. Gall when he made Cairn. And you find it excluded more and more from new games. I will read what Mr. Manalone has to say because, to be honest, yeah, he's a thoughtful individual. He spends a whole page talking about presence and why it's being added. He says it more thoughtfully than I could say. Though Cairn has never had such an attribute to this author's knowledge, many tabletop role-playing games have taken a stand on this of late by eliminating presence, perception, or any skill that can be used to find, notice, discover, or perceive anything that only barely peeks into the PC's field of vision, conscious awareness. In a way, this makes sense, as it rewards the ingenuity and problem-solving of the player rather than the abstraction of the character's, quote, wits power. Now, certainly this does provide some fairness problems when it comes to the fact that not all players are as smart as their player characters. But I suppose that there are enough subjective things in tabletop role-playing that by adding a skill-based factor isn't the worst thing in the world. Of course, as always, things are not as simple for the solo player. Given the common axiom that justifies the exclusion of presence perception, i.e., If a player finds something, then they find it. No presence check needed. That is all well and good if the player and the GM are separate people. What a luxury it would be to the soloist to have a separate and external GM to adjudicate whether something has been found or whether it was even hidden in the first place. They will never know how much we soloists suffer. Because of this, the attribute of presence has been added to the solar supplement. Presence has been chosen over other worthy attribute titles so that a wider net can be cast in terms of what actions, saves, checks can be made use of it. In addition to anything similar to perception, presence also indicates your player's level of emotion, intuition, or connection or spiritualism. This can be helpful to flesh out a character's attunement to the world and to themselves, bringing a more fullness to the picture of their capabilities and offering an additional avenue for growth. Using the skill tree system, the growth will not just be of a narrative variety. A player can certainly choose to specialize in presence, possibly opening an entire new avenue of play experience for Cairn. Yes, there are skill trees in here. It's kind of funny in a way. I laugh a little bit because this is a very beautiful, intelligent answer from Man Alone. If you've known his channel, he's a very thoughtful man. And so it's no shock at all to have a very thoughtful take on why presence is added, especially for us solar players, but really just simply mechanically as well. The way he has written this whole supplement is that each attribute is tied to a suit. And let's be honest, there are 4 suits. In a tarot deck or any deck of cards. Hence, you have to have 4 attributes. You have your swords, you got cups. Let's see, you've got, where's the other ones? Here's the wands. And lastly, where's our pentacles? They're in here somewhere. Cups. So it's apparently, they're not shuffled in here very well. There we go. There's the pentacle. So there are 4 suits in the deck, and he's tied the suits of the tarot deck to an attribute. Well, you got to have 4 attributes, the way he's designed the game. So I think it's just a little cheeky that he would not mention the fact that, well, it's also a design choice because he has to have 4 attributes to match the 4 suits in a tarot deck. But yes, he's exactly right. So many games, including Cairn, have done away with it completely. This concept of insight, perception, intuition, presence. It's fine. I can understand their point of view. Too many games use that skill, that attribute like a crutch. If you can't figure it out, just roll a skill check. Here's your insight, okay, and the GM can give it to you. Certainly in certain big games of the 5th edition, I can't tell you how much insight and perception are indeed used and very, very overused. So I'm sympathetic to their cause. But at the same time, I think their solution to that problem is just to remove it completely and then have this expectation that GMs will do a great job of describing the things they want their characters to, or their players to pay more attention to or to notice. They expect the players to be actively engaged and thoughtful and creative and be able to pick up on the GM's hints to look at the things that the GM wants them to look at in order to progress the stuff. They depend on a lot of player agency. And if we're being honest, I don't know how many Let's Plays I've watched on Twitch and YouTube that have followed this removal of these kind of skills. Yeah, and just to see players stumble around and get on the wrong track and not understand what the GM's trying to point them towards and not pick up on the hints, and the GM has to circle around and emphasize again, a little more emphasis about, hey, you notice this barrel in the corner of the room. Oh, and then keep going back and back and back, and the characters lose it. And finally, after half an hour of fumbling around. Oh, maybe we should look at this barrel. In the reality of the situation is not as elegant as I think sometimes the developers would love us to think that it is an actual play. Either way, it's a fine design choice. I understand why they make it. But for us, so anyway, we have presence is a big factor in this. Has its own skill tree, and as Manalone says, it adopts many different elements that you wouldn't normally see in Cairn. So it'll play a significant role. I will roll presence just like the other attributes, 3d6, and kind of go from there. But I will include it in the exchange and go from there on that. Some of the things to talk about that guy. So that's the biggest addition, and that's why he devotes the whole page, I think, to talking about it. But, okay, so of course we're going to use a couple tarot decks for this. One tarot deck, I think I have a second tarot deck running around here. I'll dig it out whenever a good time to play. One tarot deck is just used like any other sort of oracle. It's just meant for inspiration. And we'll draw cards to kind of get the vibes of things and stuff like that to help set the scene, maybe show us some NPC motivations and things like that. Along with the oracles, Flint has a lot of oracles, which is nice. It has all the ones you would ever want for oracles of magnitude, you know, everything from intensity, quantity, relative size, likelihood, conditional state, yes, no prompt, of course, which has your absolutely not, no, yes, absolutely yes. Numbers, scales, power, quality. This page of oracles will be hitting constantly. It is well seen in a lot of games. It's nice condensed on this page. Only requires a D6. Perfect. There's your spark tables. There's nothing in here you're not going to see. It's not unusual. Actions, nouns, descriptives, things like that in here. But it does break them down. It has a general one. It has one that it likes specifically for cities and settlements. One's for nature and wilderness. One for dungeons and delves. That's nice that he breaks them out like that. It's perfect. Sometimes one action noun does not fit all needs. So that's another reason this is going to be a great tool. I love that they're specific to the area that we're in. He also has enemy attack matrices, also something that you see kind of running around here. If we want to add flavored enemies, we can roll some randomness to them to determine whether they're going to engage us in melee, engage us in ranged, or perhaps even engage us in magic. He has a separate table in here for bosses doing some things. I don't know how much I'll use it. I'll probably forget more often than not. I don't know how much combat we'll get into. I mean, it's going to happen for sure. I'll try to remember to use these tables from time to time. I like them. I just tend to forget about them when we're rolling along. There's even a critical hit table in here for things and critical fumbles, which you know those always add that random amount of wackiness to our play. It has a threat system in here, which I think is great. So it's a step-down threat system. Uses those kind of D20, D12, D10, D8, D6, D4. We'll definitely be using this. It gives you that drama. I like overland threat tables, and it even breaks it down also by the part of the world you're living in. Overland city, wilderness, dungeons. Well, I don't know if there's going to be any seafaring in my game. There are ruins. So that's kind of cool. And he talks a bit about the threat system. You know, since we're playing this game solo, you know, one of the things that we're going to have to remember, Cairn is not a solo game. You know, the monsters in it are not meant to be tackled by one person. And since I am going to be playing one person, you know, it talks a little bit about how to set your threat levels, how to remind yourself that you are only one person. Don't worry about going, quote unquote, too easy on yourself. Too many solo players worry that they're not facing enough of a challenge or they're getting too easy on themselves. But from what I understand, I've not actually played Cairn, so this will be a new experience for me. But from what I've heard or seen on other streams, Cairn is a very deadly game. I mean, yeah, it's a very deadly game. Combat is deadly. So it would not take much for me to get involved in combat. And I certainly don't want to make this the world's shortest deep dive by being wiped out in my first 30 minutes of combat and being done. But it talks about that. Talks about how really to scale the threats based on your level. Level 1 folks can't handle much, but level 2s and 4, as we get tougher, we'll be able to upgrade, what kind of threats we can handle in a combat level. Talks about solar wilderness exploration cycles. So it has exploration cycles specifically for dungeons and wilderness. Those are in the Warden's Guide and a bit in the Player's Guide on it, but it has its own cycles for it, which is kind of cool. It'll allow us to what actions we're going to use as we're proceeding through a dungeon. It'll be very useful when we start doing dungeon crawls and wilderness crawls, which will be fun. And then finally we come to the half of the book where it's about the tarot cards more specifically for generating quests. It goes over a brief description of what the tarot cards' meaning are. As you would imagine, the way the suits work in tarot, they do tie roughly to attributes. Sword is strength in this case. I think, and we'll see how it goes in here, how it kind of works, that sort of thing. It ties each suit to an attribute and how we'll be using those. And what the meanings of these suits are, as far as what kind of cues we'll use for role-playing and narrative generation purposes. It has an NPC interaction table, which is kind of nice. We can draw our arcana or tarot cards for NPC interactions. And then we finally come to the PC growth tables. The existing growth factors in Cairn that are in the books are still in existence. This does not replace the growth that is here in, pretty sure it's in the player handbook. Let's get back to it here. Not downtime per se. Is it here? I guess maybe growth is in the Warden's Guide. Okay, so growth must be in the Warden's Guide here. Let's take a look. So, let's see if I can find it. I want to at least take a look at growth. Oh, that's the question and answer on here. There it is. Growth. So, Mr. Gall has a whole principle for growth in here, which is great. I like how he handles growth in this game. It's narrative driven, and he gives good examples of growth, such as interacting with something you don't understand, long-term exposure to a spell book, forming relationships with beings of great power. Anyway, overcoming a long-time woe. I like that a lot. Injury, learning through trial and error, which seems to be my way of learning things, mostly by error and trial. Success or failure, despite the natural talent or ability. And these are still going to be in place. This book does not supersede those avenues of growth, but it adds to them, as we will see. Let's see. And when it gets to that point, we'll talk about how we're going to handle growth when that happens. It has the listing of facts, advance, bond resolution. It has those sort of things in here. But also, the big thing is it has a quest generating system in here, which we'll be using pretty extensively. Every 5 days of game time, we will draw a quest by drawing a tarot card. That quest gives us certain objectives to fulfill. If we can fulfill that quest within that time frame, we'll get a skill point. If that quest kind of matches the tarot card, the suit that we've drawn in here, we can get an extra one if it's where we're especially progressing in. So there's a whole system on that. I don't want to go into too much details till it really happens. But if it aligns to the suit we're dealing with, we get extra points to it. Face cards even gives, and I'll give you some examples. You can kind of see it's like swords, for example, is a suit of strength, structure, endurance, confrontation, invention, symbolic quest of strength and fortitude. So for example, If I draw the Four of Swords as a quest, one of the conditions to fill that quest is to spend a whole watch or scene preparing for a single moment. If I draw a Three of Swords, break something before it breaks you. Face a decision you have avoided before, don't avoid it this time. Defy an order, customer expectation. So as you can tell, these quest cards are narrative, mental. So we're going to have to build the world around us. We're going to have our own adventures that we're going to seed through random oracles, like we do any other sort of solo game, right? But these are going to be some of the conditions we can attach to that sort of world when we draw a card. Share a passion with an unlikely source. I love these. Set a bold goal and name it aloud. So celebrate a small victory like it is a big victory. Anyway, hilarious. Stir the pot, provoke a reaction. So you can kind of see how these sort of work. And to give you an idea of maybe presence, the suit of presence, this is cup. Mourn something that was lost. The loss need not be yours alone. Refuse something and sit with the consequence. Choose to believe in something, show others that belief. So you can tell how that's a little bit more spiritual in the nature of this sort of things. Call upon the waters that flow beneath the surface. The face cards are challenging. They're much more difficult. So probably he recommends you do not, if you draw a face card, you may want to reshuffle it. It may not be something you want to take on until you've grown a bit. There were 3 points towards leveling up your character in the future. Speak with someone you do not understand, make them understand. Have a dream, play it as if reality. Regret something you thought you'd be proud of. These require, as you can imagine, more development and growth to accomplish, especially the face cards. They're all like this, a bit more challenging. Endure tedium without shortcuts. I'm sure you guys are doing that right now. So, sorry. Anyway, they're very fun. And then, you gain points based on how, if succeeding these quests. If you fail the quest, you reshuffle them. It talks about how many points you need to advance up the skill trees. And you'll see these are skill trees. They give you some fairly good benefits, the sort of things you'd like, the sort of things you'd expect from a skill tree like this. The swords one being strength, for example. Iron grip, you may carry one item that exceeds your strength score without penalty. It's a very basic starter one you can get right away, right? Once per combat, add +1 damage when wielding a two-handed or heavy weapon. Or if you go the other direction, so you get a choice between side A or side B. You may switch between wielded weapons or stances without spending an action. So there's an example of how you can grow, and it gets progressively more difficult and more points to cost to grow to get to the higher levels. If you want to see the end one, let's see, that is, iron, it's up here. Oh, I guess I kind of went backwards. I forgot it starts here and goes up. So like side A, mythic, like Fury Lord, these are the top of the skills, right? Fury Lord, where is it right here? Grim Past, Unyielding Bastion. Well, let's see, it's funny, I'm kind of blind though. Fury Lord. Oh, I guess that's what they count. Once per rest, strike all enemies within reach for a single sweeping blow. Once per day, declare, I cannot fall here. If one round, you're immune to damage unless undone by narrative conditions. So some of the big ones hit at the very end of the tree. Wands is going to be willpower. For example, you may cast from a spell book without consuming the spell if you pass a will save. Some of the bigger ones at the end. Mirror chant. Once per day, if targeted by a spell, you may reflect it back at the caster. So you can tell these abilities really improve you. Coins is going to be your dex. Cups is going to be your presence. And here's some of the presence ones, for example. Once per rest, ask a question aloud and receive a clear, intuitive gut feeling from the world. The answers can only be one of the following: truth, deceit, safety, or danger. Some of the big ones here at the end. Once per session, grant a nearby ally or yourself immunity to fear, possession, or social coercion for the duration of a scene. So that's how this game progresses. On a larger level, and this gets a little bit more into it, but there's a section here about fates. This is for the major arcana, you know, the ones you always hear about: justice, the world, the chariot, the tower, those sorts of things. These are, you can draw one of these particular major arcana cards once every 30 days, and they're meant to have a subtle narrative fate on your entire play. And when we get to that point, we'll talk about it in game. I don't think we draw it right away. It's really when we start hitting certain succeeds or failures, you gain or lose fate, depending on whether you succeed or fail quests. And then that can really cause your fate to a shift in either a positive manner or a negative manner when you draw these cards, and can lead to some interesting and fun gameplay and consequences. And this is more about fates, but we'll deal with that when it comes to that. But anyway, that is Cairn in a nutshell. Quest generation by drawing cards, fulfill quests, move up skill trees, become better at the world and things that you do, get more powerful. As I said, none of that kind of rules, they don't replace what's in Cairn. They just supplement it in a different kind of gameplay loop. As a solo player especially, it's not like we have a party. So we have to find ways to progress through the game. I hope that was a good overview of how Flint works. I will make sure to link it in my description here for it. It looks really fun. I've not played it, but I'm looking forward to playing. Like I said, I never played Cairn, never played Flint. I am pretty familiar with tarot decks. I use them often in other games. So I'm looking forward on exploring that whole part of the game. But as I mentioned, you know, it is a little, you do need to kind of still build frameworks. You've still got to have adventures. You've still got to have goals. You still have a lot of stuff. These quests hopefully are incorporated in your existing adventure, in the existing narrative structure. You're not going to be creating a quest specifically to interrupt someone stronger than you and prove them wrong. That's not a quest in and of itself. Hopefully it's something that you narratively use as a goal to work into whatever quest you're working on, right? So it's not like this generates quests. We'll be generating quests the old-fashioned way, rolling on oracles, you know, and things like that. And then these quest cards will be narrative challenges, I guess might be a way to look at it. Narrative challenges that we'll be integrating into the quest as we go along, which will add a lot of fun and variety. Okay, so that's Flint. The big character creation change is, of course, adding presence as a stat that we will be using for this solo supplement. Okay, I hope that wasn't too long, but it's its own thing. I don't know many people have seen Flint, so I thought I should take the time, since it's going to be such an important part of our game. As I said, it's as big as the player's guide, maybe a tad bit bigger. So it's going to be a big supplement for us for playing this game. As an aside, you can see I've made version 3 of the world map. Yes, I think it looks great. Oh, I'm so happy with how it turned out. I have named the regions Ettenmore, the Painted Wasteland. You see what I did there? There's the geysers. The Painted Wasteland, Harrowhurst Wood, and Lord Tanner's Lock. Since the lake was kind of the dominant feature up here, even though it's on bluffs, it doesn't need to be named Bluff. The lock is the dominant feature, so I named it after the lock. I also named our heart city Bracken Abbey. I've already written kind of an intro to the game, I think. 1-page preamble, what do you call it? Preface, intro part chapter to set the scene for Bracken Abbey and to discuss a little bit about the world. It will set the world up. I've written about 1-page thing, which when that rolls around, we'll take care of that. Anyway, I like how this map turned out. I've been working on my doodling skills. I know that sounds a little silly, but you know, being creative in everything is fun. One of the reasons I like solo playing is that it inspires me to be more creative in a lot of ways, and that creativity is not just in playing the game, it's in making quests, it's in building the world, it's even in creatively doodling. You know, I really like being creative, and so I'm learning how to be better creative in a lot of ways. I feel like things carry over. If I can creatively draw even these little doodles, if I can do them in a journal, when I start journaling this game, it'll give that journal more flavor. It'll be just something more fun for me to get creative and explore. Anyway, I'm trying to become better at all sorts of little creative things. I've noticed since I started role-playing and started doing all these creative things, it's even helped my games with friends. When I play my normal tabletop games with friends, I'm more creative in my play, I'm more quick-witted, more funny, and I think that's grown out of my solo play. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Let's roll this character. Like I said, it is a very, very short procedure. First off, I will randomly roll for everything. I do want to keep in mind, as I said, Cairn's a tough game. Cairn's not really meant for solo play. Although there's a skill tree in here which eventually we'll be able to work our way up and develop, and there's a threat system in here and things like that, it's still a gap. So I want to make sure I give my character every possible advantage to survive this world. I'm going to make it tough. I mean, I do want to, ideally, eventually, it'd be fun to explore these places on the map. I created dungeons. I want to go check them out. I've got a forest. I'd love to do a forest crawl. So I got these things I'd like to explore. And because I'm going to be going into dangerous places, I do want to make sure I give myself every possible advantage as a solo player. Otherwise, like I say, if you don't give yourself these advantages, you're too hard on yourself. It's just not going to be as much fun. The same session may end shortly and meanly. You might as well try. So some of the things, you know, I'm going to do my best. I'll flee battle. If things get bad, I'll just run away if I have to, you know, things like that. And, you know, we will try to fail forward. If I fail somehow, I don't know, I actually get down and die in a dungeon, I will try just to flee out of it. I'll try to find ways to make myself survive, even if I fail. So failure doesn't necessarily mean my character has to die. I'll try, if it's narratively worthwhile, well then that's fine, if it narratively fits. But if I can fail but not completely destroy the campaign and the game, that's the goal. So I'm gonna try to set myself up for success wherever I can. Let's do the background. Cairn is a classless system. There are no skills, as mentioned. It follows that light rule. If you think your character can do it, you can do it. If you think your character can't do it, well, you can still do it. Maybe you might suffer some disadvantages and things like that, but you can give it a shot. So you don't need to worry about skills, but you do roll a background. Backgrounds just basically give you your starting gear. And give you a few special items and a few really just kind of hooks maybe into what kind of character you are a little bit, or at least were. I like the backgrounds because they're very different. I don't know. Cairn has no particular. I mean, it does have its own setting, which is the land of Vald back here. My campaign isn't necessarily set in Vald. I guess it could be, but it's in the far reaches, so it's not really I don't think it is really set in Vald. But I mean, it's not set to any particular time. But the artwork reminds me of kind of maybe late Middle Ages, early Renaissance, right? Is that what it looks like to you? Or maybe even later sometimes. I guess it's sort of a fantasy world, but it has very much a vibe of late Middle Ages, early Renaissance vibe to the art. I think it's very cool, especially I don't know if I've really talked about, but especially the cutscenes in here. Look at this. I really like the black and white silhouettes. I think they're awesome. But they may even be a little bit more modern in their approach. Maybe definitely pre-industrial, but maybe not. We're not talking Dark Ages. This seems later than that. Either way, no here and there. So I'm gonna roll background. You can roll them randomly. You can pick. I'll go random. If it's a background that I don't jive with, there are a few that maybe I'll be like, I'm not too worried about it, but maybe I will give myself a reroll if it's something that I literally just kind of look at and go, I don't know. I have no ideas about. I might give myself a reroll. D20. 20. Okay. Way at the end. I think there's 20 in here. Pretty sure I got that right. Oh, a Scrivener. Wow. Okay. Well, I guess I am in a scholarly intellectual society. Okay. Scrivener it is. All right. And that's it, right? Oh yeah, this is background number 20. Okay, Scrivener. Okay. Let's see. Our first fun optional questions. I'll write down the gear a little later. I don't think you need to worry about it right this moment. What work did you keep for yourself? Oh, okay, D6. 6. A garden of glass, bound in the cover of another book, a heretical work. It describes the materials, procedures, and optimal locations required to open a gate. Oh my. Oh my, that's no small thing. That's no small thing. That right there could be a major, that could be a campaign driving item right there. Opening gates are a very big deal. This is the gate to the roots, the underworld, where the dark and mysterious things are. Gates are rare to find, rare to open, hard to close, and lead to scary places where things can come in and out. This is, that's a big deal. I'm gonna write that down. A garden of glass. Wow, that's that could set that could be a thing for an entire campaign. Interesting. Okay, what did you how do you transcribe sensitive information? 4. A whisper vial. Whisper a message into the vial and it will play back to whoever opens it next. I like that. Whisper vial. So there's the 2 special items that I begin the game with. Wow, that's a pretty good one too. Verbal. Interesting. Nice way to transcribe messages, right? My only minus is, of course, because I add an extra attribute, I don't really have a good character sheet that has room for an extra attribute, so that's fine. We'll have to work it out. I will choose a name shortly. Wow, okay. Maybe I will write my gear here on the other side. Okay, well, let's do it. At least write my random gold pieces so I know how much my gold pieces are. How much money I start the game with. 5, 2, and 1, 5, 6, 7, 8 gold. That's all I have to randomly roll for. Everything else is set up that way. Okay, let me roll for gold. Wow, the methods to open a gate, that's wild, man, wild. Okay, let's roll for attributes and hit protection. Strength. Dex and will and presence. Okay, let's see if I remember what it says here. We can swap 2, right? How that works. Roll 3d6 in order. You may then swap any 2 of the results. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. If I roll like abysmally low, like they're like freakishly low, I give myself the right to maybe like if all the stats I roll are below 10, like every one of them, or something like that. Or I roll like 3 5s, you know, if it's really bad, I will just scrap it and re-roll. Like I said, I'm a solo player. I don't want to punish myself too much. But it's not too big a deal, I don't think. I'm not going to worry about it too much unless it's like genuinely really, really bad. Okay? All right. And I get a swap too, so maybe, and this is kind of my scratch. Maybe I'll write them over here and then just we'll worry about swapping them here. 6, 5, 4, that is a pretty great start. 15. Holy, are you kidding me? I guess I don't need to worry about my prior conversation. I guess all my talk, I don't really need to, never mind. I don't need to worry about it. Oh, wow, 13. In fact, this might be almost too good. It's a little bit weird. And then finally a 10. Wow, okay, that's a very shockingly strong character. Normally I don't roll well. Normally I'm a very poor roller, but to roll an 18 and a 15 is shocking. Yeah, normally I'm a traditionally cursed person. I roll for crap. So I'm stunned. Well, the Scrivener, a Scrivener is going to be, you know, an intelligence-based or probably a will-based person, right? Yeah, I would think so. I would think my stance would be will-based. Maybe I should disturb Mr. Gall even worse. He's probably already disturbed with this discussion of presence. And actually, I will go with 18 on my presence. I think that's what we'll do here. I think I'll go 18 presence. Mr. Gall is, I hope he's not, I hope his monocle isn't shattering right now in his eye as he's listening to me talk. So I think I'll maybe do a 10 dex and I'll do an 18 presence. Okay, there we go. There's my swap 2 stats. That'll be interesting to see because presence really isn't much here. But yeah. Okay, hit protection. This is, like I said, I got to give myself a early advantage. I thought about just giving myself a 6 for protection. I guess because my stats are so good, maybe I'll be a little bit different. I'm going to roll a d6. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give myself 5 hit protection. 4, 5, 6. I'll give myself 6. I know it's stupid to give it a little bit of roll like that. Listen, I'm a solo player. I'm going to get involved in combat. I'm a Scrivener. So, yes, 6 hit protection it is. Okay. I guess maybe I could read about hit protection a little bit for you, since, once again, maybe folks are unfamiliar with Cairn. I probably should at least talk about it a little bit. Hit protection, which reflects your ability to avoid damage in combat. It doesn't affect health or fortitude, nor do they lose it for very long. And then so the way hit protection works is if it armor, when you take damage, armor takes it off, subtracts it from the damage first, and then you subtract a second from your hit protection. If you lose all your hit protection, then you start taking it from stat, whatever relevant stat that would be. And if your stat goes to 0, you die. Or, well, it depends on what the stat is, but it can lead to death. So hit protection is important. It does spring back pretty quick. But it's really your main defense, really. It comes back quite fast, but it goes away fast from what I've seen as well. So having a 1 hit protection, for example, is just not great. You're pretty well losing that hit protection every combat, dropping strength every combat. With a 6, I hopefully maybe can go a round or two, a couple rounds, before I start taking attribute damage. I read this recommendation for playing solo. That's one of the things that you can do to help ensure that maybe you have a little bit more beefiness in combat situations. That's hit protection. Okay, so I think then at that's almost really kind of towards the end of it here. We'll kind of go over the inventory a little bit. I'm still pretty light on inventory slots. That's not really a problem. I rolled my backgrounds. That's kind of it. There's character traits, which I might roll on for fun. Oh, we should roll bonds. They're kind of interesting. Bonds is background bond. I guess bonds are bonds. I don't know if I need to describe it. You'll see it when I roll it. So I don't know if I'll roll the traits, at least all of them. Maybe I will make note. They could at least maybe inspire me, I guess, is how I will look at traits. Let's do it for inspiration. Physique. Let's do it. Let's do it because maybe it's for kind of fun inspiration for my character. Whether I'll keep them going forward, I don't know, but at least they might inspire me for the type of character it is, which is kind of the whole point of backgrounds. It's going to give me some narrative thoughts. So that's why I'm going to roll them. Physique D10. Now I have a D10. I know I do somewhere. Somewhere here's a D10. D12, up the wazoo, D10. 2, brawny. Well, okay, I do have 15 strength. Skin, birthmarked. Okay. I find it a little odd to go so far as to define your skin type and your hair. So that's almost like a little too video gamey for me. 5, frizzy. Oh, frizzy hair. Face, 7, rakish. All right. Rakish it is. Speech, 0, 10. Whispery. I do admit I like these. I'm kind of enjoying them. They're a little wild. 9. Oh, rancid clothing. Well, maybe I should do some shopping or take a bath before I begin the game. Virtue, 7. Humble. I like that. Vice, 1. Aggressive. Okay. I got a short fuse. I snap easy. Okay, there's some traits. That's pretty fun. I like those. At least gives me some ideas for maybe what kind of character I'm going to make. Maybe I will post a description of the character. Maybe I'll definitely write a description in my journal for what he's going with. We'll go from there. All right, bonds. That's a D20. Bonds are interesting. Bonds are what ties you to the world, to the people of the world. Yeah. They too can provide good quest hooks. Although I don't know how you could find a better quest hook than a garden of glass. The procedures and materials needed to open up a gate. That's as dramatic an item as it gets. But anyway, let's see. Maybe not. I haven't looked at all these bonds. 2. A distant cousin left you a small inheritance. Take 20 gold pieces and a strange compass that always points towards something deep in the wood. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. I love it. I love it. A compass that points me somewhere deep in the wood. Oh my goodness. And 20 gold. I mean, well, money is actually kind of nice. Okay, I'll take that. 28 gold. A compass. That points into the woods. That's amazing. I so love these quest hooks. So love them. There's so much meat on the bone already for what we're up to. Oh gosh, so many quest hooks. Love it. Love it. Okay, so that leaves omens. Omens are just well, they're omens. They're exactly as they sound. And it's fun. I've never seen this before, but if you're playing in a party, the youngest person in the party has to roll on the omens table. And then you would read the omen aloud, and somehow, somewhere, the GM can incorporate that into the campaign. I'm the only player. I will roll it just for fun. But I've already probably got more quest hooks now than I know what to do with. This is a wealth, a treasure trove. But let's roll on the omens table. 16. The constellations have slowly started shifting in the night sky, forming unfamiliar patterns that have stargazers and sages perplexed. Even the animals seem disturbed. Oh my gosh. That's so good. That's so good. I'm just going to notate on here, Omen 16. I'll journal that. We'll see what impact that has on the world. Okay, and I think that's it. I can do some buy selling in the marketplace, especially now that I have 20 gold of inheritance from a cousin. I can spend a little money now. maybe buy some new clothes and take a bath. But that's rolling a character in Cairn. That's it. So, as I mentioned, I'll probably be journaling this game, but I won't be doing it necessarily live on stream. I'll be taking notes and probably transferring them to my journal as we go along. And I'll make up a character sheet. I'll make up a name. I'll incorporate this character into this town of Bracken Abbey. I see him as probably being a local. He's a sage, an intellectual. So I'm going to picture him as maybe not being a foreigner. He's a local boy, gone good. So, yeah. Anyway, I know I've gone on enough. I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover today. My next video, like I said, I've already set a scene that I will probably read when I start. And then I'll go over my fleshed out character and talk a little bit more about the thing. And, you know, I've named all my factions at this point. I've got a good idea what the faction's all about. I've described them a little bit. I've got the names for the agents of the faction. So maybe we'll go a little bit into into the world building. But really, at this point, you know, we need to do some campaign building, which I'll do probably offline, really. And we'll start playing here really soon, I'm sure. By the time we're at the 4th makeup video, you're ready to play. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you guys have a great week.